Howdy! I thought I'd make another video today. If you can, if I can, why not? How many of you Christians and non-Christians know that Christianity is based upon evidence? We don't use a scientific method to try and prove God. Even though I can go out there and see trillions of platforms, Plant Life, each with its own database of digitally programmed information, so that all of these various platforms can take the forms they do. Now, add to that human beings and their different DNA. Add to that animal species and their DNA. Add to that fish species and their DNA. Add to that the fact that scientists now know that we live in a very complicated video game, basically. We live in a hologram. This being the lesser reality of creation, there is a higher reality of creation. And Christianity establishes itself in history through the evidentiary method. This is the same set of principles we find in our system of courts. You present the information, the evidence for this information. The Old Testament and the New Testament attest to themselves many thousand times over by the sheer wealth of information left behind. Names, places, dates, prophecy. In the religious world and out of the religious world. Like this thing going around about Jesus was never real, he was just a myth. Most historians, religious and non-religious, would look at a person like that in the room and laugh them out of the room, because what they're saying is so universally accepted as being untrue. Jesus is not a myth. Whether you believe in deity or not, he actually really existed. People within the religious community and people without the religious community wrote about it. Contemporaries of his wrote about it. We can look at prophecy and look at things being told to us that are going to happen, and they're happening. What does that have to do with the evidentiary method? Well, when you have 1,000 prophecies and 899 have come true just as given, do you have any doubts whether the rest are going to come true? You're being told from a being out of time, God, what's going to happen, and then it happens. I can sit back and just by the evidence alone, in fact, that's how I became a believer, by seeing the evidence in the prophecy and realizing there's something greater at work here. It's not aliens or anything like that, like the future people will be told. It's evidence-based. I mean, if Jesus was buried in this burial chamber, and a 1,000-pound stone was rolled in front of his door, carved round, blocking entrance and exit to this passage, guarded by a squad of centurion soldiers. Everybody knew where he was buried because this place was offered up for him to be buried and was guarded by Roman centurions. And then the next morning, the stones rolled away, signifying he's not here. He left. He's been taken. Evidence was left behind. I contend that the evidence will be left behind when the resurrection after happens. Because when this event happens, excluding the death, burial, and resurrection of Christ, this will be the greatest single microsecond in human history. Because the sides are going to be clearly drawn. And they're going to know there's a good side, God, and there's a bad side, Satan. Now, Satan's going to convince the majority of the world through the process that he's the actual real person, that he should be worshipped over God. And sadly, most of all of humanity is choosing this side. You know, in the past it was just get them not to believe. That's, in effect, it destroys Christianity that way. But it never failed. It never worked. So then they corrupted the religion of Christianity. Seventh-day Adventists, Mormons, Jehovah's Witnesses, Catholicism. They're all fake Christian. They're the world's Christians. They're Christians that the world accepts as being Christian. Like the secular world knows what it's talking about. There's a small minority of that third of the population now that believes it's Christian. Well, there's about 10% of it that's actually real. When this 10% just poof vanishes, when graves are opened, because the tomb was opened as evidence he's not here, so the evidence for the dead Christians, they're not there either. They've been taken. It's going to be a shocker. It's going to be the single largest ingathering of people to believe in Christianity. They're going to say, oh, we should have listened. Oh, we should have listened. Because they were sitting on the fence the whole time, listening to non-believers that do not believe in Christianity, and believers that are non-Christians but are part of the cults. And then they're going to realize all these people are false. This Bible, and it was the truth all along. And there have been people like me out there all along telling you, be very specific in your reading. Evidence for this entire Christian faith is given to the tune of 25,000 ancient or portion ancient documents. That blows away any other mythical cult out there. And there's a lot of cults riding on the coattails of Christianity. And many of them are labeled Christian by the secular world. Well, they're soon going to find out they're not. You add anything to the gospel of 1 Corinthians chapter 15, verses 1 through 4, you are accursed and you will be left behind. I know people that say homosexuality is not condemned by the Bible. Or they say homosexuality is based upon the bigotry of the religious groups. Let them believe it. They're going to be left behind, because there may be a person struggling out there with same-sex attraction because we're all in the flesh. They may even give into that temporary satisfaction, but they're still saved. They call it a sin. I have no problems with that. But what I have problems with is a person that's supposedly a Christian says it's not wrong at all. You can do it. Well, then you know that person is not saved. The world is at the point where something is going to happen. And we Christians, the harvest field is ripe. We need to be out there telling people, hey, you might want to become a believer, you're going to be left behind, and you are going through the real crap after the rapture. Because the world is going to be ugly. And all we can do is sit back and say, I tried to tell them. Actually contend for the faith. Now then there's people that get so convoluted and so analytical that they try to string together verses and make some kind of disjointed sense out of them, and we get Mormonism, we get Jehovah's Witnesses, or we get whatever they are. People that deny the rapture or say that the rapture is the second coming. You know, it's a lack of contextual study. And here we are telling them, grace through faith, not through works, unless you boast. Because if you're boasting, you're giving another gospel, and you are condemned. The gospel is extremely simple. This world is extremely complex. What divides simplicity from complexity is the little thing called Jesus. Do you have the right Jesus? Do you have the wrong Jesus? Do you take the Bible and twist it to suit your needs? And do eisegesis? Or do you do exegesis, actual real contextual studies? And even now my words fall upon deaf ears. They won't hear until the resurrection rapture. That's why we got to leave material behind by the tens of billions so that the world has something to grab onto afterwards to say, they were right. I'm now a believer. They're going to suffer for it, but they're going to become believers. All right. Thank you much.